Hello, I'm Mike Wilson, CEO and founder of the RegTech Forum. The RegTech Forum is a not-for-profit, industry-wide community and resource dedicated to regulation and technology innovation. Welcome to Acadiasoft's market update on Phase 5 uncleared margin rule implementation extension. On July 23rd, the BCBS and the IOSCO released a recommendation to extend Phase 5 implementation that was due to go live on September 1st, 2020. The recommendation moves entities that will fall above 50 billion of average aggregate notional amount into Phase 5 for September of 2020 compliance, and the rest of the entities above 8 billion to September 2021. To discuss what this means for Phase 5 firms, we have with us today John Pucciarelli, Director of Strategic Initiatives for Acadiasoft, who is focused on several aspects of Phase 5 implementation and industry outreach for Acadiasoft. Hello, John.
Hello, Mike.
John, you were previously with ISDA as Director of Market Infrastructure and you ran several working groups there. You've also worked as an industry advocate effort and implemented plans for the industry to ensure firms are compliant from a business and operational perspective. I think your insight, John, will be very helpful for everyone to come to grips with really what this extension means. So can you explain what the BCBS and IOSCO recommendation extension means and why have they done this now?
Yes, of course. Well, thank you, Mike. Well, I think the recommendation is pretty straightforward. The standard-setting body of BCBS and IOSCO essentially added a new phase to the uncleared margin compliance phase and schedule, where instead of one final Phase 5 above the 8 billion ANA calculation that was set to go live in September 1 of 2020, we now have two new phases. Now, firms who are above the 50 million of ANA will be in scope for September 1, 2020. And all the firms above the 8 billion will now be in scope in September of 2021, as you alluded. In terms of the why now, well, the industry made its case last year, gathering a lot of compelling data on why a delay might be needed, indicating the amount of firms that would be in scope, and highlighting the vast difference in the sheer numbers of firms that all previous phases and Phase 5 differed. Clearly, the industry was worried about the number of firms coming in all at once for Phase 5, and that would cause bottlenecks in the system. So this is a clear response to those concerns, and it's a good time now because U.S. firms, as most people know, who are subject to Phase 5 are in the middle of completing their ANA calculations. So I think, the timing of this announcement is right. And I think, anything later probably would be a little bit more problematic. I will add that, BCBS and IOSCO are only a standard setting body. So we will need to hear from the local jurisdictions, the actual regulators across the globe on this recommendation to understand what the implications are going to be.
And thank you very much, John. And from your perspective, what is the impact of this extension for Phase 5 clients from your view?
Sure. Well, the obvious impact, of course, will be those firms that are in that 49.9 billion and 8 billion that last phase will now have an extra year to prepare and not have to rush through the process. But it is only effective if they use their time wisely and not stop any of the work that they may have already done to get prepared for these rules. Just as a reminder, several Phase 1 firms going through that process who had very robust project planning teams working on this encountered several last-minute issues as they approached their compliance date in 2016. So it goes without saying that Phase 5 clients will experience last-minute issues as they go through their plans. Time is on your side until it's not. So that's kind of the theme. I would say that that would be the major impact for Phase 5 clients.
And what does this extension mean for Acadiasoft? How will it impact your current plans for your clients who are all in flight?
Sure. I mean, the way I see it, and I think the way we see it collectively, is that our strategy has not changed. We are still full throttle on getting our clients ready to tackle the challenges ahead for UMR compliance. Our working groups, the webinars, in-person roadshows, podcasts like this, our one-to-one client interactions will continue as they have been for some time now. Education on the impact of these rules and how our products are going to help them and save them time and money is still crucial. And that won't stop, and we won't stop until every firm is up to speed on all of that. Really, the only difference here is that firms that are going to be caught in 2021 will just have more time to absorb the information and make decisions at a more unhurried pace than they did before.
And just following up from that, John, should firms who believe they're in scope in 2021 take a pens down approach, or should they just press on with their implementation plans as drawn out and look at this extension almost like a gift?
Well, absolutely not. I think a pens down approach, this is not a good practice. This delay, as far as from my perspective, is not a license for complacency. As I said earlier, firms will encounter unforeseen issues. If I was a firm in this new phase 6, I would use the time wisely. Otherwise, you'll fall into the trap of wasting the entire purpose of this delay, which was not only to shorten the bottleneck, but to give firms more time to kind of extend their timing and their decision making and all of their planning. There is a lot to do. There are legal documentation negotiation that needs to happen. That takes quite a while. There are decisions that you have to make in terms of whether or not that you are going to use SIM or grid, and if you are going to use SIM, how are you going to calculate it? Are you going to use a third-party vendor like AcadiaSoft to do that? How are you going to put together your CRIF file if you're going to use SIM? What custodians are you going to implement and employ to do your segregation? Your segregation accounts need to be set up. Your account control agreements need to be negotiated and set up. So there is still a lot to do. I think even in the time frame that we had originally before this delay, it was obviously a very, very short period of time to do all of those things that I mentioned. But even with the extra time, it's still going to be a lot to do. Firms are still going to run into unforeseen problems, and I don't care how good your project plan is, you can't ever build for dependencies on other firms, which there is dependencies on other firms for phase 5 and this new phase 6 that you're going to encounter as you move through. And so, even though you think you're in control of your entire project plan, you will have several dependencies on outside counterparties that will dictate how your project plan moves forward. So, in short, I would urge every phase 5 firm and every phase 6 firm, if you are moving forward on your plans now, to continue, to not stop, do not lose the momentum that you've gained so far, and continue to educate yourself, continue to engage in the marketplace, and do not put your pens down. I would say do not stop and use your time wisely.
Excellent, John. Thank you very much indeed. Well, this podcast has been brought to you by AcadiaSoft. On the screen here, you'll see some further resources available to you. There's a accompanying industry article that goes along with this recording today. John, thank you very much for your insights. And I can presume also, John, we'll have regular updates as we progress through phase 5 now into phase 6 coming from AcadiaSoft. Is there anything else for our audience out there for other follow-up actions, John?
No, I think we summed it up here. I say, keep your foot on the throttle for those firms, and through our working groups, we will be informing and educating our client base on all the impacts of these rules, and as they pertain to them. So stay engaged with us, and just stay engaged in general. I think that's my message. But you'll be hearing from us again shortly. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Use the time wisely. That's great, John. Great advice. Well, thank you very much indeed, John.
Thank you, Mike.